Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is 1:01 p.m. here on the west coast of these United States of America. It is not as cold as I make it look. I just enjoy sweaters. We have an exciting time. These are our Tuesday discussions where I invite friends. I've titled it somewhere, I have friends and they have stuff to say. And I have lots of friends. And for some reason, I keep making friends with people who are extremely opinionated on various subjects. We have one of those guys that's going to be joining us in a little bit. I'll bring him on. So go ahead, drop a comment, tell me what's going on, hit that like button because, you know, it helps in the YouTube world, universe, metaverse, whatever they're calling it nowadays. We're going to be talking about Christians. We're going to be talking about psychology. We're going to be talking about psychotherapy, if there's a difference between those two things. I'm about to learn a bunch of new stuff. And then we'll be talking about why Christians should take advantage of these things, find the help. We might even talk about a little bit of philosophy in the midst of this. I don't know how our guest will be comfortable in doing that. So let me bring him on. This is my very good friend, Andy Terzyan. Andy, do we call you Dr. Andy now?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Just Andy's fine.
So Andy, you're currently in the state which God loves most of all states in the United States, Texas.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that true? I don't know. You tell me. You've lived there.
Oh man. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. Uh, Huge honor, huge blessing, man. I hope that whatever we talk about today can glorify God, and it'll be a fruitful discussion. Um, I don't know. I love Texas. It's been really good. I've been here for a little over 4 years now. I
Wow.
did my graduate school work here. Yeah. I was a student at Dallas Theological Seminary. I guess we'll get to this later on, as we kind of get into the whole psychology stuff. But I studied at Dallas Theological Seminary, so that was 2018 when I moved here. And honestly, it's been really fun. It's a great state. The only thing that I would complain about is like being Armenian, being so like closely like tied into the community and the culture. It's really, really hard here as an Armenian, man. Like
Yeah.
we do have a community and it's really cool and it's small, but it's growing. It's not the same as like Los Angeles or any other place that has like a really big Armenian population. Like
Yeah.
I'm one of two or like one of three therapists here, if that.
Wow.
So that kind of like tells you that it's so small essentially.
So I remember when you moved to
So
Texas. That's probably one of the most memorable phone calls I've had with anyone because you were like the week before, I think, or maybe not, maybe a couple of weeks before, we were talking, and I was like, "Oh, you should go to Talbot, and they have a good psychology program, and they're good
mhm.
when it comes to their just graduate school and all this stuff. Obviously, right? I'm gonna recommend Talbot, but." And then I get a phone call from you. You're like, "Hey, class starts on Monday," and I think it was Friday, if I remember
Yep.
correctly. And you were like, "I'm driving to Texas to make it to class
Yeah.
on Monday." I was like, "Dude, like, how did this all happen?" Right? Like, it was like a crazy transition, and you just
Oh
ended
my
up there.
gosh.
And then I was in Armenia, and then you were visiting Armenia, and we got to spend some time together. And we've been
Yeah.
we've spent a lot of time talking on the phone about various things that are pertaining to apologetics and
hmm
theology and philosophy. So I appreciate your heart. So how weird is it to because I know it's weird. That's why I'm asking it this way. How weird is it to become a psychologist or a psychotherapist? Explain the difference before you answer that, maybe. Um, as a Christian, and then doing it amongst Christians, because with some Christian perspectives, it is a sort of like a taboo. It is something that is, even in some cases, it's considered like worldly, and you don't need it, like things of this sort. So start with, I guess, psychology, psychotherapy, and then we'll move on from kind of trying to build a base theologically why we could even do these things.
Man, that's a really hard question to answer. Psychology is like the field of study, from what I understand, right? It's like this huge like field of study that's just called psychology.
Hmm.
And for somebody to be a psychologist in the US at least, you would have to have a doctorate in psychology or a PsyD, which is one of the, it's essentially there's two routes to becoming a psychologist, the PhD route and then the PsyD route. So, in terms of actual practice, people who become psychotherapists or counselors or marriage family therapists, LPCCs,
Hmm.
et cetera. There's like a whole bunch of different, it's very specific. So I don't know if you want to get into all that, but anything under the doctorate level is just like the master's level therapist essentially
Got it.
can pretty much do everything that a psychologist can do. We're trained almost identically. Obviously, they're going to have a little bit more training in certain areas. A lot of the stuff that I hear is like they'll do like certain types of like testing. Um, so, for example, like neurocognitive testing or neuropsychological testing,
Hmm.
one of the two. There's different like testings they'll do. There's a huge overlap, so it's really hard to distinguish. Honestly, it's mostly like a pecking order thing. Like the PhD psychologist is here, and then if you're a master's degree psychotherapist, you're like a little bit underneath that.
Correct.
But then there are some psychologists who are absolutely, I won't say trash, but they're just not good because their heart's not in it. They have the academic work, they have the
Hmm.
brain for it, but it's just like personality wise, it's like,
Yeah, that's probably
it's like
true in
talking
any
to,
that's probably true in any discipline, right? Like that's
yeah.
just the case. I mean, so okay, what did you major in at Dallas?
So I got a master's in chaplaincy and a master's in counseling.
Okay. And that's like
Yeah.
including all sorts of crazy theological coursework as well.
Yeah. So Dallas Seminary obviously highly values the Bible. So you basically you go through all the biblical books in any degree that you get there. So it's kind of just mandatory. It's part of the program, which
Mm,
is great for people who, want to know God's word. So,
correct. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, okay. So Christians and psychology, this has become less of a taboo kind of word. It still is to a certain extent, but even in culture, I'm realizing, right? Like people are like much more open to saying, "Hey, I see a counselor."
Hmm.
Where in the past people would say that if there was something really wrong with them, you would think like, "Oh, this guy's like, I don't know, gone off, gone off the wagon or something. Now he needs to see this guy." Where people are like, "Hey, we got this issue," or we're a couple, we're seeing marital counseling, we're seeing a marriage counselor or something like that.
Hmm.
What's happened? Kind of where has the shift taken place? Why has it become normalized? Why is it still taboo in some Christian circles?
Man, I don't know. I can't comment too much on the Christian
Mm-hmm.
side of things, because I don't think like most young people really see it that way or have ever seen it that way. I feel like it's the older generation. I remember talking to one of my one of my pastors when I was at a church in Los Angeles, and he had this like old school mentality that he was like, "Oh, psychology's like it's of the devil." I think like he legitimately said something like that.
Wow.
I'm paraphrasing, but
Yeah.
like it was pretty similar to that, and I was like,
It's
it's
worldly.
just this,
They want to be nice.
yeah. I think he said it a little bit more aggressively than that, but yeah.
I'm
So I
I'm
don't
I'm
know. I
being
think
I'm being uh a lot more
a lot
gracious, I
nicer.
guess, in the
Yeah.
midst of that. Okay.
Yeah, so I would say like the whole just how his perspective has changed. Like even when we were growing up, like in the 90s and the 2000s, it's like, oh, like that guy's in therapy, like what's wrong with him? Or like you didn't really talk about it. But now it's like almost everyone you talk to, like, oh, my therapist said, oh, my therapist said. So it's becoming a lot more It's becoming a lot less of a taboo subject. So people are going to therapists, they're not scared to get therapy. And I can see how it's scary at first, but after one session or even after like a 15-minute like phone consult, like you'll realize like there's nothing scary
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, it just, I mean, I don't want to lessen it by saying something like this, so I hope people understand me. When you have someone that can actually, that has been trained to pay attention to certain things and kind of
Mm-hmm.
help you process your thinking properly, it is extremely helpful. Now, again, this isn't like, sometimes, you have that friend who thinks he can like counsel everyone. Like everybody has this friend. Like this guy is like the self-proclaimed psychologist. He's always like talking, advising this person and that person and that person.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's bad. I mean, if the individual is good at it, it could be very helpful. And a lot of people might have in traditional societies, a lot of people might have gotten this from grandparents or parents or something like that. But our society is different, and maybe not a lot of us get this. And then also, sometimes situations require where you see a professional individual who's been specifically trained to do this and understands
Right.
behavior, understands certain patterns, things of this sort. So why not? We're going to start like pushing some buttons, because there's not an interview, by the way. It's just me and Andy are talking. You guys get to pay attention. We do this on the phone, like on the like he'll like text me. He's like, "Hey, you got some time? Can we talk for 5 minutes?" It's never 5 minutes. Not that Andy's lying, but it usually ends up being like someone's like lunch break, and he's like, "Okay, man, we can talk later. We can continue this conversation later because I got to go back to work." So, why is it that we need this in the church when pastors are supposedly, I mean, a part of pastoral work is counseling, is advising people? So I've seen a lot of churches say that. It's like, why? Pastors should already be able to do this.
There's so much training that goes into it, man. There's no way that a pastor can get enough training. Like even most of the degrees not most of the degrees, I take that back. If you're going to go for the THM at Dallas Theological Seminary, for example, I haven't looked into other seminaries or other like, Bible colleges and stuff, but you're required to take pastoral counseling. So you take one class on it. It's extremely helpful. But there's absolutely no way, from my perspective, that you're going to be able to counsel your congregants well as a pastor if you don't have any like legitimate training. Like we go through, like just for the degree portion of it, you have to go through 300 hours of like face-to-face therapy with clients, all different backgrounds, all different scenarios, different psychopathologies, different issues. There's so much that goes into it. There's so much reading that goes into it. I don't know, it's really, really complex, and pastors just aren't trained for that. Should they be? Yeah, I don't know how possible that would be, like to just fully train them as good as you could train a counselor or a therapist or somebody.
Correct. And one of the things I've seen recently is a lot of pastors actually getting like a second degree in something like marriage and family therapy. And they'll do that
and
on
when
the
I said
side plus
300,
in their pastoral work.
mm-hmm. Right, and when I said 300 hours, like that's just to graduate. Like after graduating, you have to collect another like 2,000, 3,000 hours, depending on the state, for them to like fully like unleash you out into the world. Um, so there's a lot of training that's involved with it, and I think chaplaincy comes really close. I think later on, if we have time, I'll kind of talk about like my background and stuff. And like I've been doing chaplaincy work for the
So yeah, let's
last
talk
year and a
about that.
half now.
Okay. So
Yeah,
a lot of people hear chaplaincy and they think prisons, right? Like,
yeah,
or military. And
yeah.
some folks who understand what's going on think hospitals. So tell us which kind of chaplaincy work you've been doing and then what that's been looking like.
Yeah, so I'm a hospital chaplain. I'm a resident, to be more specific. So I'm wearing I'm at work, so I'm on my break right now. But UT Southwestern represent, shameless plug. Um, so I worked for a year at Parkland Hospital, which is a county hospital here in Dallas, Texas. It's a major, U.S. city. It's a major hospital. There's like 800 beds, so it's like UCLA, USC level. Like it's like a legitimate big time like research hospital. Well, UT Southwestern and Parkland work together. Parkland is the actual hospital itself, and the doctors are all from UT Southwestern, which is the medical school slash the research hospital slash the university,
Hmm.
etc. So I did my first year there. I didn't get enough. Wanted more, so I decided to do a second year at UT Southwestern. I'm 6 months into that, and it's about 1,500 hours of clinical training that you're getting from, yeah, I think that's about right.
So what does that look
It's
like,
300.
Andy? Like, okay, so you're there. It's like, do they just
Mhm.
call you to the? Again, we're friends, right? Like, folks, just relax if I'm gonna say
Yeah.
stuff like this. It's like, do they just like anybody? Anytime someone's dying, they're like, hey, call Andy up, right? Like, this guy's dying. He's got like 15 minutes left to live, or is it a lot more kind of wide range of things? I don't know. A 11-year-old broke his arm and is crying, and then Andy's got to go in there and have a conversation. Like, what does that look like, right? Because my wife is like this one of these individuals that really, really enjoys just these hospital shows, and I'm one of those people that will like watch it. Like, I will not watch those shows on my own, but my wife's watching it, and then I'll watch it, and I get hooked on it, and she goes to sleep, and I continue watching it, and every single one of them has that like counselor, that psychologist, like who's like solving everyone's issues and all that stuff. So yeah, like is that like true? Is that like what's going on at hospitals, or it's something else?
Man, yeah, like it's weird. I've been doing this for a year and a half, and if you ask me to define what chaplaincy is, like I would have a hard time because it's
Mm,
so complicated. Like at a first glance, it's like, okay, you're the chaplain. Like you're gonna go take your Bible, walk into rooms. It's not that at all. Okay, you're providing spiritual support. And spiritual support can look like anything. Like you can provide spiritual support to an atheist. It's basically, um, it's finding what means meaning to the patient
mm,
and then helping kind of like use that to comfort them or to kind of process with them what's going on or to kind of just sit in the situation with them. So for example, there's this idea in chaplaincy, which is honestly a lot of this stuff is borrowed from like psychology and like the whole psychology world. But it's like one of the key things that we learned, like I think it was like literally a few weeks into the program when I was doing my residency. It's like this idea of empathy. What is empathy? And this will kind of give you an idea of like what a chaplain does. They gave us this illustration or this illusion or this, they showed us a picture, in other words, of somebody stuck inside of a hole in the ground, right? And they're explaining to us the difference between sympathy and empathy. So when you sympathize with someone, or sympathy, it's like somebody on the outside of the hole saying like, "Hey, like, are you okay down there? Man, that really sucks. Like, you
yeah.
know, sorry." But empathy is you like literally climbing down into that hole with that person and just like sitting there with them.
Mm,
And that's what you're doing as a chaplain. Like I'll walk in, like just yesterday, I had a patient death, and like I'll go to one at least a week, like one death a week. And I walk into the room. Well, they call you first of all. They paid you. We got these little cute phones. They're called Voceras.
oh,
Just the company that provides them. So you get the call on the Vocera. Or we got pagers. Hold on, let me whip that out. It'll
pagers,
throw you
dude,
back to the
pagers,
80s,
dude,
80s
pagers,
and 90s, baby. Look at
pagers.
that.
They still use them.
So they'll page you when something happens. Hey, we just withdrew care on this patient. They're expected to pass in like 20 minutes.
Mm,
So I go to the room. It's an older gentleman, like in his 80s, literally just taking his last breaths, bro. It's crazy. And he's surrounded by his family. Everyone's crying. And like your job is to just provide support. If they need prayer in that moment, you pray with them. If they just literally need you to stand there and just put your hand on their shoulder, you just stand there and you put your hand on their shoulder. And it sounds easy, but like
yeah, man,
empathizing like that all the time,
dude.
it's like,
So my question is like, and maybe this is like a personality thing. This will lead to one of the questions that Tom's asking right now. But like, how do you not get desensitized to that? Where you just like, right? Like it would be very easy to get so desensitized to people's pain and death and suffering because you see it so much. Like personally, maybe there's like things you do, I don't know, thinking patterns where you're like, okay, come back to reality, you know, like, is there, I don't know, maybe you do get desensitized. I have no idea.
I don't know. I don't know if it's a okay, I can't say that word. I don't know if it's an issue of like desensitizing. It's what I see more often is people being so invested into it that they take it home with them. I feel like
Ah,
that's the bigger issue
yeah. Oh,
because like I work with chaplains who like absolutely incredible chaplains, but they'll take the work home with them.
yeah.
Like they would go home to like I couldn't sleep last night because I kept thinking about this case that I've been working. I think that's the hardest part of it. I haven't experienced like really feeling desensitized because like somebody's dying. Like it's not. I
Yeah,
don't know. I
yeah.
think that's more of like a personality thing. I
Yeah,
see
probably.
physicians. Yeah, like physicians. It's just their personality, man. They're just okay. We're calling time of death at 8:36. Can we get a moment of silence? Moment of silence, and then all right, on to the next one. That's it.
Wow.
But I think the people who are in the like more, not that a physician's job isn't a helping profession, but something like a nurse that's more like nurturing, caring. Like nurses get impacted, man. They're crying, like they really feel sad. They really empathize with these
Correct.
patients. And I'm not throwing shade on doctors. I'm married to one, but it's just like a, it's just a personality difference.
Yeah,
Thankfully, my
because you don't
wife's
want
not
to
like
show
that,
up
but
home and your
most,
wife's like, Andy, I saw that interview. You know, why are you coming at us sideways?
yeah.
And she's high Nancy, so
Um,
she'll come at you, bro.
she'll come at me.
No,
Yeah.
she has a very sweet disposition. So, okay, so look,
Yeah.
Tom's asking, Tom says, how did you get interested in this field? Like, what was your personal motivation to get into this?
Totally random, man. Totally random. I was wrapping
I was
up.
expecting
Good
like
question.
the heavens opened up and God spoke to me and was like, Andy, you've been called to this.
No,
I'm going to use you for my great glory, you know, right? It's like
no, man. I feel like everything that
anticlimactic.
happens. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry to burst your bubble, bro. It's anticlimactic. Um, so funny. Um, I feel like so many things. Okay, I wanted to say this. I was actually thinking about this before our talk today. Um, I feel like God speaks to me through my wife so much. It's crazy. Like she has like some crazy intuition. Like the Holy Spirit like speaks to her and then like she'll tell me stuff where I'm just like I would have never thought of that.
Probably why you wanted to
And
marry her,
so
because you're deaf.
yeah, man, for sure.
You're not
For
alone,
sure.
by the way.
That's good to hear. Thank you. Um, where were we? Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
So
Sorry.
so chaplaincy. So I was wrapping up at Dallas Seminary, and as part of your last year, you need to do like
Uh-oh. We lost him. He might have gotten a phone call. Um,
I got a
it's,
phone call.
hey,
Hopefully
I
they don't
knew
call
it.
back.
I knew it. Okay. Last year, we heard it was my last year.
So it was my last year at Dallas Seminary, and what happened was you have to do a 1 year internship. And so I was kind of looking around, and before that last year, a couple months prior to that, I had this idea that was given to me by a friend of mine who's in the Coast Guard currently of becoming a military chaplain. We might have to save that for another episode. Um, and so I thought about it. I said, yeah, this whole military chaplaincy thing would be cool. Like, I get to like minister to people. Um, as the military, you get great benefits. You get to travel the world. And so I was, I had gotten in, I gotten accepted and all that. I'd done all the the whole interviewing process. I'd gone through all that stuff, and I got accepted. And I was like, okay, maybe I can do like the military stuff as part of my internship. So I just called a random base, like the closest one by my house here in Dallas, which is the base in Fort Worth, Texas. And the command chaplain was like, "Yeah, I'm sure we can like work something out. Just come in, we'll talk." And my wife had the idea. She's like, "Hey, don't they have like hospital chaplains?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think they do." She's like, "Why don't you try that?" I'm like, "Okay." And the reason was because the military side wasn't going to pay me. It was just going to be like, go spend multiple hours there. And then, you know, um,
Yeah.
we're a young family. It's just me working,
Correct.
my wife studying for the board exam. So it's like, it was not going to happen with me spending half my week at the base, like serving without getting, financially reimbursed. And so I reached out to Parkland Hospital. A resident had dropped a week before or 2 weeks before the program started. Usually you're applying 9 months in advance. And so literally 2 weeks before it began, they were like, "Yeah, let's interview him." They interviewed me.
Uh,
They're like, "All right, we want
sounds
you. Come on in."
sounds
So
like
I
God.
literally, it just fell on my lap. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which
Um,
is funny because I actually, yeah, go ahead.
no, go.
Super quick. So it's funny because I actually wanted to bring this up when we started this talk, this conversation. You said something about like me calling you on Friday and my classes started on Monday. That was another thing that was like God's like handwriting was on it. I went to Armenia. I was gone for the summer. I had applied to seminary. I came back a week before classes started. I hadn't heard back yet. Mind you, classes are starting in a week. So I
Correct.
called them on like a Wednesday. I got back on Wednesday. I called them on Wednesday and I said, "Hey, classes are starting on Monday. I haven't gotten a rejection letter and I haven't gotten like an acceptance letter. So like, what's up?" And they're like, "Oh, we upgraded some stuff in our system. We'll let you know. Maybe something happened to the application." I said, "Okay." Thursday rolls around, no call. I'm like, "Okay, surely they'll call me tomorrow because it's the weekend. They don't work on the weekend, so they're gonna call me tomorrow." Friday rolls around. I called them in the afternoon. I'm like, "Hey, like I still haven't heard anything back." They're like, "Oh, we're still working on it. We'll let you know." I'm like, "Yeah, but like classes start on Monday." And the girl who answered the phone, she's like, "Oh, it's okay. Like as long as you get here by the end of the week, like you'll be fine. Because by the end of the next week, because the first day of class is like going over the syllabus and stuff."
Mm.
So, um, and so Friday, Saturday, Sunday after church, I left church and I got an email, "Congratulations, you got accepted into Dallas Theological Seminary." And I'm like, "Dude, classes start tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't have an apartment. I don't know where I'm gonna stay. I don't have my classes picked out. I don't even know what books. I don't know nothing. I absolutely had no idea what I was doing." And so I talked to my dad, and then my dad's like, "Okay, like, you sure you want to do this?" I was like, "Yeah." Um, so he's like, "Okay, well, just, fly out to Dallas, stay for a week in a hotel, kind of figure it out, see what's going on. And then, if you decide you're doing it, fly back and then, take your car or whatever." And I was like, "You know what?" I prayed, I thought about it, and I'm like, "Look, if God's calling me for this, like, he's going to provide." And thinking back, it was kind of crazy how I just totally put my faith in him. But like, I just like bit the bullet, man. I was like, "All right, like
Yeah.
if he's gonna provide, then I'm just gonna do it." So I packed my car. Tuesday morning, I think it was, or Monday morning. Tuesday morning, like I don't know, like 9, 10 a.m. I just drove to Texas. Every stop I was making, I was like sending in like housing applications. Like I'd stop to eat. I would like send in like job applications. Bro, this is God working.
Oh
Okay, check
man.
this out. By the time I got there, I had my housing figured out. I got the last room on campus, and my roommate. I'm sure you know this. Viewers probably don't. I grew up playing in like metal bands, right, in Los Angeles.
Sinner.
My roommate turned out to also be. That's a conversation for a different day. My roommate turned out to be not only like a metalhead, like a metal musician, he turned out to be like a guitar builder. We spent the whole first year building guitars together. Um, anyway, like everything just worked out. I got all my classes in time. Like I got, again, the housing was figured out. Like everything literally just like fell into place. There's
Yeah.
no way that would have happened if God
Yeah.
wasn't
It wasn't
involved.
like one
But
thing. It was
anyways,
like
it's
a
a little bit of a
bunch.
sidetrack.
No, it's good
Yeah.
because, well, we got a friend here says, I wonder what is a good way to tell the difference between fortunate coincidence and the work of God. Hey, you and me both, man. There's I don't know who said this quote, but it was some religious leader, but I think it was like something like, what you call the work of God, I call a coincidence. Uh, and then the guy's response was, yeah, but it seems to me that these coincidences keep happening every time I pray. So I would say, you know, when you get a combination of a bunch of stuff and you're praying and they're kind of specific and things like that, then I'm usually like more hesitant to say this is God. I try to kind of, you know, eliminate the options and stuff like that. But when you got like 8 things that work out a very similar way, then I'm like, okay, God's probably got something to do with this. Hey, so we're looking forward, Harut saying, we're looking forward to seeing you later this month, Mr. Terzyan. And we're just looking forward to having you here. So I'll tell you that because,
Thanks, man.
hey, it's nice to have a guy who's not only a psychotherapist, but also a musician. We promise we won't abuse you. Okay? That's just
Too much.
But yeah. This is a serious question, Tom's saying. He says, hey, as a Christian, how do you deal with unbelievers? Scenario, a suicidal person needs your advice. Can you share your faith? Or is there a different best practice? Not in the chaplain role. I don't know what he means by that.
Oh, so like in the regular, like not in a like in a psychotherapist role, not as a chaplain, I guess. We can wait for clarification, but I'm pretty confident. Man, Tom, that's a good question. Assuming the patient or the client doesn't have like a faith, man, I can't answer that in an interview like this. It's so dense, man. Like there's so many different like psychotherapeutic like techniques and stuff. Trying to figure out like what's going on. Is it like drug induced? Is it something that he's been battling for a long time? If it's something like super immediate, then you'd have to get them like to like a hospital. Like they'd have to be like inpatient, like hospitalized basically if they're like actively about to do something. Like there's so much to it. But in terms of like, can you share your faith? It's kind of like frowned upon unless the client brings it up. Like you wouldn't really bring it up, but you can ask them like existential questions and be like, yeah, exactly. Just asking them like existential questions. This is going to sound absolutely crazy. I have had a preceptor or a supervisor teach me a technique. I haven't used this because I think it's crazy, but literally like have had a supervisor say like, man, that's really bad. Why don't you just end it? And you're thinking like, whoa, like real, like what? And anyways, again, there's a lot of like techniques here. So like, I don't know if we have the time to go into all of this stuff, but it just kind of depends on the situation. It depends on the client, depends what they're going through. If they're actively suicidal, again, inpatient, like at a hospital, like getting them to a hospital or like helping coordinate that or having, you know, a loved one call 911. When you're working with people like that, usually you'll have like a safety plan set up. You'll kind of list out like, what do I have to look for? What do I have to live for? Are there any like weapons or anything in my house? Can I give them to somebody? There's like a whole like process that you kind of have to go through. In terms of just like outright sharing your faith and like giving them the gospel, like in a psychotherapeutic, like in a, you know, like in a room with the client face to face, you're probably not going to be able to do that. You probably could, but there's always a possibility of somebody reporting you or something, of you, you know, proselytizing or like pushing your faith onto them, and then you kind of run into problems. So it's about very delicately bringing that up in the conversation.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Cody says, let's go. You had me at metal bands.
Yeah.
So is it the guitar you play or the bass or both?
So I played bass in that band specifically, the one I'm thinking, my most recent band. I played bass.
Mm-hmm.
Formerly trained in piano. I hated it. So I started playing the drums because my neighbor was playing the drums. I was like, that's cool. That's what I want to do. So I cried to my dad for like a year. I was in like seventh grade. I was like, please, please, I want a drum set. And then when I seventh or eighth grade, one of the two. And then when I graduated, he like called me from Guitar Center and he was like, "All right, which one was it?" Because I had it all planned out, like which drum set, like which cymbals, everything. So he called me. I love my dad, man.
That's
He's
cool.
always
Very
been there.
encouraging. So you're like an all-around musician,
Yeah, but then
except singing. Except if
I
if we
can't
ask you
sing,
to
man.
sing, you probably go like crazy yelling or something. Like that's not singing. That's just yelling.
I can't sing. Everybody would leave. Everybody would just leave. That's what would happen.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Henry says, I think that's where I recognize you from, the metal band scene in LA.
Oh, nice.
You and Haraj,
That's
I
so
think, will
funny.
get along really, really well. Chamichan is saying, finally, he's coming back.
All
He's
right, all
happy.
right.
What's up, Vertan?
Yeah,
Um,
I miss you, V.
Ashley says, now Ashley's studying something very similar to this. Let's see. Nouthetic counseling. And she says, are you required to advise and pray? It says advise, but advise and pray with people of other faiths, or do you only respond to Christian calls?
I'm not sure what she's referring to, like in the chaplaincy world,
Yeah, I think so. I think
or
like
in
at
the
the
counseling world.
hospital. At the hospital, are you like a Christian? Do they have like a Christian chaplain and a Muslim chaplain, and like, is it like that? So like you generally get called to people who identify as Christians, and then maybe some people who are
No,
just like, hey,
so
get us the nearest person.
yeah, yeah, that's basically what it is, the latter. So for all those who don't know, nouthetic counseling is like Bible. I'll just say what I from my perspective,
Mm-hmm.
my experience. Nouthetic counseling is like Bible only, like super
Counseling.
like to the Bible counseling. I'm sure I'm willing to bet a lot of money that they like implicate, not implicate. What's the word I'm thinking of? They use stuff from just like
The counseling world.
secular, regular psychology. Yeah. Um, anyway, that's my assumption. I'm pretty sure they do. But in the chaplaincy world, you will go see people who are not Christian. And a lot of times, I'll be honest, you get put into weird positions where like you'll have a Muslim patient, and we're called as Christians to love everyone and to like still provide support and provide care, and like absolutely you do that. It's just weird because then they're like, yeah, like can you pray for me? And you're like, okay, but like you can't pray to Jesus because like that's not gonna fly for a
Hmm.
Muslim. So it's like so you get put in a position where you're like, okay, and then you're like, well, I'm not going to pray to Allah because like that's not going to happen either.
Yeah.
So what do? You're in this predicament. So you keep things generic. Oh God, we come to you today to pray for my patient here who's sick. We pray for
Interesting.
healing, for you to just have your hand upon their healing, and then at the end you just close out in prayer. In your name we pray, or something like that.
Amen. Amen.
Um, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
it
it's
gets
essentially like what I've seen
dicey,
like in
man.
political circles. Like you've seen like State of the Union kind of stuff, right? Like not State of the Union. Ah, like I've seen it when like presidents win. What's the inauguration prayers and stuff like that sound a lot like that. These general, our glorious heavenly Father, which is hilarious to me because it's only the Christians that can call God Father, and it's only the Christians that call Father, because it's only the Christians that are taught to pray our Father. But like they'll try to make this generic thing. I'm like, you didn't realize how Christian that thing was when you just said Father. That's it. You had me
Right.
at that. Um, okay, yeah, man, I can imagine how difficult that would be. So maybe that leads us to the following question Tom is asking: how do you deal with moral conclusions that go beyond science? Oh no, this is different. Okay, so let me read this. How do you deal with moral conclusions that go beyond science? Most psychology believe in same-sex affirmation, and data seems to support it. How to weigh scientific consensus versus your biblical morals?
Good question. Man, Tom's hitting me with all these hard
Tom's
questions
got
today.
like Tom's like out to get the psychologists. No, this is serious, man. Because look, I think Tom's onto something here.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I see trend-wise in society is certain fields get hit first when it comes to this stuff. right? Like the way culture kind of shifts. Certain fields get hit first, and then it kind of trickles down and hits other fields or whatever like that. Like I think like teachers right now are in this category. Like they get hit. Like what do you do when a student comes in there and says, "I'm a cat, and I'm going to use the litter box in the in the bathrooms that the school just installed"? It's these sorts of questions. So like is there room for you to be a conscientious objector to certain things? I suppose is what he's asking. Like, how do you deal with that stuff?
Absolutely not in the counseling room, man. There's no way for you to do that. If you're planning to help that client out with whatever they're going through, you have to be as unbiased as you can. If there's room to talk after the session, if there's questions that the client has about certain things, I would save that stuff for like either after the session or like um, if you really want to like uh, provide help in like a different way, then you would just discharge them and then not see them as like a client anymore. And then I need to check what the ethical rules around that are
Yeah.
because I don't know if you can like discharge them and the next day go and like start preaching to them or whatever. But like you wouldn't be able to do that in the room because 75 to like 80%, 70 to 80% of like the results you're going to get in counseling are is called the therapeutic relationship. It's how your relationship is with that client.
Mm.
And if you're just going to like destroy them for like what they believe in or whatever, they're not going to get any results. They're not even going to come see you again. So you have to be very, very, very delicate, and it's like a very fine art. And chaplaincy is kind of like that too. It's like if I'm walking into like an atheist room, like I have to be very, very delicate. And can I still glorify God in the conversation and like still like give them like a little like pebble of something, like a little pebble of knowledge or something? Like absolutely. And I think that's where most of it is going to happen. Then if they have questions to ask you to clarify things because they want to know more, then you are allowed to kind of like again hit them with more biblical truth or more get more into like moral issues and stuff like that. But if somebody comes in and they say like uh, they give you some sort of like moral issue and you're like, oh man, you're an idiot, why would you do that? Or like, oh, I can't believe you did that. Like if you're going to be like giving them like your opinion or like how can I say this, you're going to kind of like put them down in a way, or you're going to like your bias like show, you're absolutely not going to get any results. And again, they're just not going to come to you. So, and our job is to help them genuinely.
Okay.
So hopefully that makes sense.
Let me see. Tom says, side note, I'm not an anti-psychologist. Yeah, we know Tom. Man, yeah, I mean, Emil's asking, are you coming back for sure?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. There's just some like logistical things, like the typical stuff.
But we shall see you back in our region by I want a date, man.
Couple months. Yeah, probably like in the summer, more than likely. I'm waiting for my licensing stuff, so I guess at some point I was assuming we're going to talk about this. I'll just say it. So, once you're out of school, once you've graduated, and once you are no longer under the school's like protection or license or the practicum site that you're working at, like their license and their protection, you're not allowed to call yourself a psychotherapist temporarily until you're licensed. Just like a weird, legal
in
type
between
thing, whatever.
You're in purgatory.
So I've seen, you're in purgatory. So you have to send in a bunch of paperwork. You got to send in like your syllabi. It's like a whole huge packet you got to put together. Send it to the board. Then once it gets approved, they send you like your license, and then you're good to go. So once I get all that stuff back and I get my license, that's when we'll be in California because
Got it.
just getting up right now and coming, I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, got to support your family. So
correct.
Got to work.
Sorry, I'm trying to do 50-minute things. I've seen and heard psychologists tell young people to lie to their parents about their sexuality because it would be less stressful. What are your thoughts about that? Are there ethical issues there?
I've never heard of somebody doing that.
Okay.
Can they who wrote
Jeremy
that? Can we
has.
have them clarify a little bit?
Jeremy, clarify.
Like what they've heard? Okay.
Um,
Yeah, what have you heard? I'm curious to
Sapere
know.
Aude says, Arthur, is the litter box thing a serious example? No, it's like half joking. But, like if you spend like 15 minutes on TikTok, you'll see plenty of people identifying as cats. For some really weird reason, there's like a large amount of people identifying as cats rather than, I don't know, like wolves would be like a lot cooler. But, right, yeah, so no, no, I mean, that's like half joking, right? But you could see how things of this sort could seriously put people in situations, and then as Christians, as we deal with, and Sapere is not a Christian, but that's why I said conscientious objector, not necessarily like a religious objector, right? Like there could be things that obviously someone who is not of any faith could be in this line of work who might have some conscientious issues for certain things, right? I would say that person ought to be protected. Like just give an example. Like guy's an atheist, and then he goes into a room, and then the patient is like forcing him to pray in Jesus' name. Like it could be the complete opposite of the example you gave. It's like I sort of feel like the guy should say, "Hey, thank you, but there might be a better person to find in this hospital that could meet the needs that you have." Like I feel like there should be some freedom there. I mean, that's just my personal commentary on this. Where I'm sure the hospital would have a Christian like Andy to say, hey, come pray for this individual and with this individual because he's a Christian. Or have a Muslim to come and do the following work. In the military, like I have a friend who served as a chaplain's assistant in the military, and obviously that same space but multiple services where you had a rabbi and a pastor, and the Catholics had priests, and then you had a imam. And even though, like, when the soldiers would come, the way they would counsel them and all those things would be different. In the case, like, they would advise folks, but they at least, like, the Muslim soldiers could go to an imam. Like, they didn't have to put the Christian pastor or priest in an awkward situation. Like, come pray with me to Allah. And the guy's like, I can't do that, bro. I don't believe in this stuff. So it seems to me that might be...
It can get very...
Yeah. Because then you're looking at the health of the person, but then it's like, are you going to lie? You're going to violate your own personal conscience? It's all sorts of crazy ethical stuff that starts popping up to the surface. Okay, we're coming to 50 minutes, Andy. I know you're like on break, but let's see. Let's try to jump through these questions as much as possible.
I wanted to add something real quick on that before we get to the next one. ACPE, which is the accreditation, I can't remember what the acronym stands for. It's like the accreditation for clinical pastoral education or whatever. They're basically the body that does all the accrediting,
American
all the stuff
Christian
that we get.
Evangelical something. I'm just making stuff up. Let me look it up.
Way off, bro. I think it's the Association for Clinical Pastoral Education, or I don't know what the A is, but it's Clinical Pastoral Education. Anyway, so they're the like body that kind of does all the chaplaincy stuff, and they run all the programs and whatnot for all the hospitals. And one of the things they promise is that you're not going to have any like what do they say, like harmful, like they're not going to harm you, basically. Like you're not going to have any like ethically harmful or like morally harmful thing happen to you. And I don't know. My first experience, like as amazing as it was, there was a lot of stuff in like in the program that was like really tough, man. I'll give you an example. Like you were talking about a second ago with like, let's say a military person, you have like a Muslim soldier, and he should just have access to like a imam that he can go to instead of going to the Christian chaplain and being like, hey, I need you to pray to Allah with me. Well, I've been working again for a year and a half now as a chaplain, and my first residency I did, there was situations where like I was the only chaplain in the hospital for like 2 or 3 hours until the next shift came in
Wow.
on a Friday night, and a baby dies or is about to die. Sorry, a baby's about to die, and the family calls the chaplain to come baptize the baby. What are you gonna do? They're calling you, oh, we need you to come for a baptism. Baby's gonna die in like 30 minutes. They have some like crazy like disease. What are you gonna do? I'm the only chaplain in there. A lot of stuff like that, man. I have so many stories that like it would take me a whole. And it's funny because like I wasn't planning on talking about chaplaincy too much. I thought we were gonna talk about like psychotherapy, but
Yeah.
um, I'm in this world and um, I'm kind of like holding both of these things together at the same time. And again, so it's like going back to it. It's like, what do you do in that situation?
Wow.
Which is why I love the psychological side of things,
Yeah.
because it's not that I can't think of a way to get out of that situation or do something or like figure a way to like not um,
Violate
do
your own
something against my
conscience or
faith.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, violate my own conscience, violate my own faith, but also like, I'm still doing my job at the hospital. But like within the psychotherapy world, dude, it's totally different, man. Like another huge thing in chaplaincy, you knock on a door, you walk in. Hi, I'm the chaplain. Is there anything I can do for you? Whatever. You do your whole spiel, you do your thing. Like to my like practice as a therapist, that's so like antithetical, if that's the right word. As a therapist,
Mm.
people come to you and they legitimately have a concern that they want to work
Correct.
on. I'm knocking on the door. Hey, it's like, what do you get 80% of the time? Oh, no, I'm good. Oh, I'm fine. Yeah. It's like, okay. Now
Bye.
you can dig and find stuff, but
Yeah,
it's
because
like,
no
do you
one's
really
really
want to
that
do that?
good,
It's like, yeah.
right? Um,
So,
yeah, Jeremy's like baptism. Jeremy's Presbyterian, so he's okay with dunking babies. But it might be like the Catholic version of baptism, Jeremy, and then the Presbyterian, like you'll melt because you're Presbyterian, and because you don't accept that stuff. But okay, let's see. There's some crazy stuff here. So Tom says, "Man, that's tough situation to be in. Pray that God gives you wisdom." Jeremy gave that example. We have a student in our ministry. We have a student in our ministry who's told to not talk about her same-sex attraction with her parents because they hold to biblical standards, and this therapist does not. The student is trying to search the scriptures, is truly trying to figure this out, and the therapist is affirming, thinking what everyone else is doing is causing harm to the student. I think the student should find a new therapist, and this is my opinion. Here's why. Sorry, 1 second. You'll comment your professional stuff. Let me just like get on my soapbox a little. Here's why I would say. Generally, if you're looking for someone to advise you, you might want to look for someone to advise you who's in agreement with you on a number of fundamental stuff.
I would never go to a non-Christian therapist. And honestly, our Armenian community is so tight. I honestly wouldn't go to an Armenian therapist. I wouldn't go to a non-Armenian therapist either.
You wouldn't go to a non-Armenian therapist. Yeah,
Yeah, not that.
Oh, man, even in the Armenian therapy world, I'll give you an example. Okay, I'm gonna be very careful here, but and this has nothing to do with like how good these therapists are. But I know individuals that have certain outlooks on life and on family and on roles in a family and who can get involved in what in regards to family, and where all these people are Armenian, and then seeing an Armenian, say, from Armenia as opposed to an Armenian from Lebanon or Iran or something like that, because they all have different kind of values in the home and structures, and that has in the past, I know, been issues for some people. Like, and even pastorally, like people have approached me and said, Art, I want to talk to you because you are like high astansi, you understand the culture, and like you can advise me on like what's going on with my parents. as opposed to someone else who doesn't understand that kind of a connection per se. So you're saying find people who generally, again, will agree with your general worldview.
Right. Right.
I'm going to jump into these comments because they're like adding up. Saparade says it's a little funny that there's so many rules like what you can call yourself, but chiropractors can call themselves doctors somehow.
That was good. Yo, that was so good.
Oh man, yeah, like there's this issue in regards to like PhDs, like people who have PhDs can be called doctors, and then also people who get doctorates could be called doctors. Like I have friends that think nobody except medical doctors should be able to call themselves doctors, and then I have friends who think academically, like if you get a doctorate, you should just be called like you got a doctorate, but you can't put doctor because you didn't go through the rigorous training that a PhD individual did. Like there's so many things, but it's just hilarious, right? Like the chiropractors are like, doctor. Now, by the way, I really like chiropractors have helped me, not to diss the chiropractors, but yeah, that is very interesting.
I went to a chiropractor once because I was having really bad like IT band pain, which is like it's like a, I don't know, it's a tendon or something, ligament.
My solution to all this stuff is get a new bed.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
I'll tell you why, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You went to...
Super quick story, man. I went to the chiropractor because I was having really bad like pain in my IT band. And he like does all this stuff and he's like, you know what your problem is? I'm like, no, like what is it? He's like, you have fungus in your body. I'm like no, I was like legitimately surprised. I was like, what? He's like, you have fungus in your body. That's why you're like that area is hurting. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I have fungus? Like, yeah, you have to take this supplement. And then he tries to sell me some like weird, like, I don't know, like herbal, like supplement thing. I swear to God, I'm not making this up. Lord is my witness. This really happened. So yeah,
Did you buy it?
It's a little shady. No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
I wonder how many people. Let's see.
Just a quick.
I heard Ashley says I heard James White quit. I heard this too. James White quit being a hospital chaplain because they forced him to work alongside a Wiccan chaplain. What do you think about that?
All day. It's a regular Wednesday.
Okay. Moving on.
Man, look, I have so much to say on the subject that I don't know how appropriate it would be just like putting it all out there on YouTube. So I'm gonna keep my opinions to myself for now.
Yeah.
But you will work with all kinds of different people.
Yeah, I suppose it's one of those things where you go, like in any business, by the way, in any business, like, okay, let's just say like you're in like big business or something like that. And like the way the company wants to invest money and what they want to buy into. And then like, you got to go and like do the actual investment. And then they're investing in like a company that is ethically ambiguous or something like that. Like as a Christian, it's like, what do you do? Do you quit your job? Do you do it? Is it your responsibility? Is it their responsibility? Right? I mean, you see this in the military quite a bit. So a lot of these ethical issues come up, by the way. This is why Christians need to be on the forefront, in my opinion, of producing ethicists. And ethics, when I started my graduate program, I thought my favorite subjects were going to be metaphysics, ethics, and then epistemology, in that order. And when I did my program, I realized my favorite subjects were epistemology, metaphysics, and ethics last. And partly because of like how complicated it is. And I thought ethics was going to give me a lot more concrete answers. And then I realized, no, epistemology actually gives me a lot more concrete answers than ethics does. So not all that. So I have like friends who are ethicists and former professors. And whenever I have issues, I'll send them an email and be like, please help me with this because I can't figure it out. Like, what do I do in this situation? Right? Because it's not just as some Christians like to think, like you quote a Bible passage and then you're like done. It's really not. So the Christians disagree on ethical methodology, whatever. I'm not going to get into that. But one of these days I will have a ethicist who's a Christian come on the podcast and we'll talk about these things. My preference would be Professor and Dr. Scott Ray, who's also worked in biomedical ethics. And so he'll give you all who was my professor, and like the situations that would come up, it was like, oh dude, like how do you get out of this? Or how do you like solve it? Your therapist should be an old man with a sharp mind who sees life, not textbooks. What do you think as a young man who's a therapist?
I think there's room for the like the whole wisdom aspect of things. Like the longer you live, the longer you see things. I still think you're still gonna have to be like using some sort of psychotherapeutic like techniques and interventions and stuff here and there. So like I don't know. I don't know about just being like an old wise man, but
yeah,
yeah.
Because you could be an old fool.
Yeah, that's
I would
true.
agree. So I've linked your psychologytoday.com profile in the description box of this video. Okay? It's there. I think it's clickable. Let me check.
Okay. I appreciate that, man.
In certain formats it's clickable. Hang on. Computers do weird stuff sometimes. Yeah, because according to your psychology.com profile, it says you offer online therapy. And then you do marriage and...
That's correct.
You do marriage counseling as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So people can reach out to you. And again, they can go and they look all those details in regards to what you can counsel them on and prices and all that stuff. And I'm sure they can even email you if they have issues about pricing or they can't afford it or something.
Yeah.
You're a nice guy.
Yeah, we can talk about all that stuff.
Yeah, you're a very nice guy.
Thank you.
I was randomly going to make something up and be like, you'll get the Arthur discount. You get the Apologia Center discount. But it's such a thing doesn't exist.
Code Apologia.
Such a thing doesn't exist. Not yet. But you can name drop. You could be like, hey, I saw you on Arthur's podcast. Can you help me? Now, if you're like really rich, you might want to consider overpaying him. But yeah, everything's there. If you're interested in this, Andy, are you one of those people? I've never asked you this. Tom wrote Christians get 50% discount. Hey, so a random atheist saying, "Hey, I'm a Christian," so they can get the 50% discount.
You gotta test them. You gotta vet them.
Those evil atheists. Joke, ha ha ha. Atheists who are watching, relax. So, are you one of those people who thinks that like everybody needs counseling? Because there's some people who are like, everybody's messed up. Everybody needs counseling. And you're like, no, I think I'm good, man. Like I can, I'm not perfect, but I can figure this stuff out. But some people I've heard, they're like, no. Like every single one of us need counseling.
I think you can get through life without it. But I think if you want to like live a good life and like work through your problems and not carry stuff with you for the rest of your life and not have like hindrances and like a lot of people are like stuck in life.
Yeah.
Like I really think you need somebody because look, the therapeutic relationship, man, is honestly, it's one of the most unique relationships you will have in your life. Because this is somebody who is going to be absolutely like objective towards your issues and what you're going on, what you're going through. And you're not going to have it anywhere else. Anybody else that you tell your problems to, what is the first thing they do? They try to fix it.
Yeah.
Oh, bro, just do this. Oh, bro, just do that. Oh, man, well, did you think of this? It's like when, like, I'll have a conversation with my dad sometimes on the phone, and, like, I'll tell him something like, oh, I'm trying to, like, I don't remember what it was. I was trying to, like, get something, and he's like, well, did you check Craigslist? And I'm like, Dad, that's, like, the first place I checked. This is a long time ago. Nobody uses Craigslist anymore.
Yeah.
It was like 10 years ago. I'm like, Dad, that's the first place I checked. Like, and honestly, like, I was just talking to him, like, as my dad, to just get some like comfort. Like, it's okay. Like, you'll figure it out. Like, I got your back. You know, like that's what I'm expecting. But like, he's giving me his opinion. Like, oh, did you check Craigslist? I'm like, yes, Dad, I checked
It's
Craigslist.
the other day I was so I'm like a tech, I love tech. I'm not a tech expert, but
Yeah,
I love tech. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, I got all these issues with my internet and I'm trying to figure it out. I replaced my modem, I redid everything, whatever. Like, I'm sitting down trying to figure this out, and then there's someone over, and older lady, guaranteed she doesn't know about technology as much as I do, and tells me something like, have you tried turning it off and on again? And I'm like,
that's not bad
now,
advice
look,
though.
that is great
It usually
advice, by
works.
the way. That's great advice. If you
Yeah,
have tech issue, 80% of the time, your situation is solved when you turn it off and turn it back on again. But
right.
I'm like looking at her and I was like, yeah, I've done that like 15 times. I'm like restarted this thing so many times that I'm
Yes.
annoyed. But right, it's like that kind of a thing. And it's like, I just really
Yeah.
can't figure out what's going on. Now we figured it out for the most part. But
Yeah.
took a couple of YouTube
And that's how
videos
most,
and some friends.
right. And I was gonna say, and that's how most of our relationships are. It's like people are always trying to like give you advice, give you insight, tell you how to fix it. Your therapist is not gonna do that. If
So
you're
are you?
seeing a therapist that's like constantly,
No,
what's up?
go. I cut people off. So that's
Oh,
probably something I should talk to my
so
therapist about.
maybe. Uh, I think you're fine. Yeah, if you're seeing a therapist who's like constantly giving you advice, it's like
Hmm.
it's probably not the
Interesting.
best
So
therapist
what you're telling us is that we
to
should
go
be a
to.
lot better listeners as friends and as colleagues, and just listen.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, everyone's homework assignment that's listening to this is to listen next time your friend or somebody tells you their problems, instead of giving your opinion, just listen.
I'll
That's
try
it.
to fix them. Yeah, and if
And
you're a
I don't
Christian,
want
then
to
you can
like
pray for them as
over,
well.
amen. Yeah, and I don't want to like over, like, um,
Simplify.
I don't know, overplay it. Yeah, like oversim. That's a good one. Yeah, oversimplify. Like a therapist's job is not just to listen, absolutely, but that plays a really big role in providing care. But it's not just somebody that you're going to go to talk to and they're just going to say, and then you're going to go
Yeah.
home. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into it, man. A lot. Like, we're sitting there trying to like catch stuff, like certain words, certain sentences, certain phrases that just don't match with other things. It's like this super complex world. Um, but yeah, anyway, this I don't want to get too far down the road, but the key is to listen and to not give insight. And all I
Hmm.
was trying to say is you're not going to have that in your like everyday relationships. You're going to need a therapist to talk to. Oh, and in addition to that, you don't want to be telling your friends and family certain things
Correct.
because as close as they are to you, dude, people talk, man, and next thing you know, you have this huge problem on your hands that like you were not expecting.
But
Just from
it's not
simply
it's
telling
not
somebody
just
that you
people even talking, Andy. Like, one of the things that I would see and say is, like, if they're really close to you, their opinion of you will change. Like, if they know your like deepest and darkest secrets,
mhm,
um, their opinion of you will change. Or most people don't have the ability to be objective in that sense, like to love you
yeah,
and care for you and all that stuff, without letting that one thing you told them, that like major issue you
like
have or
impact
something
it.
like that, like impact their view of you, like see you in
Hmm.
that light, right? I
Right.
mean, couples, even like people who've been married for many years with each other, even have a hard time with this. One of the things in marriage is like, it's crazy. It's like when our spouse comes in, and I'm guilty of this as much as anybody else is, but like our spouse will come and it'll be um, like, oh, such and such a thing happened, and then you like your immediate response is like, here's the solution to your issues. And they're like, shut up. I've thought about that. I know that. I'm not telling you that for you to fix it. I'm just telling you that because you're the husband. You can tell
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you can tell that's a conversation that happens in my house quite a bit. Um, well, it's interesting. Like, if you gotta go, by the way, let me know. Um,
Yeah. I got
so
like 5 minutes. Yeah.
okay, so like it's interesting. Like, you're talking about taking your work home, but it's not just your work home. It's what you do on a regular basis that like becomes a part of your personality. Maybe it is a part of your personality, but also your work, where you start like interacting with other people around you like that. Like for me, when I'm always like teaching people and then counseling people and this and that, and then my wife comes and says something to me, my immediate mode is to like teach her something or to
Mm.
fix it. And then she's just like, be quiet. Like, I'm just telling you this so you know.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, so
She's just
why are
trying
you
to connect
telling me
with you.
this? Like, if you're just telling me this for me to know, like, don't tell me. And then it's like, you're my husband. I'm supposed to, you know. But yeah, it impacts you in such a way where it's difficult. It becomes difficult to like step out of the mode and not
Hmm.
be the doctor or the teacher or the therapist or whatever to those closest to you.
Yeah, I would say that's very true. In everything else except in the therapy world.
Hmm.
And I don't know if we should have that role with our friends and family and stuff so much
Correct.
because I feel like it's inauthentic in a way. Um, like when my buddy calls me, it's I'm kind of processing this as I'm talking about it because I'm kind of split on it.
Hmm.
Because my therapist mind is like, just shut up, listen, do the whole therapy thing, um, use this technique, use that technique, whatever. All these things are coming to my mind, and then like my friend side is like, dude, you just got to do this. But very often I'll notice, and I've noticed, like, again, people aren't looking for advice. My buddy calls me, but my buddy Dico calls me, and he was asking me something. He has a Toyota Prius, and he had to get the batteries changed on his Prius, like the hybrid batteries. And so we're talking about it, and he's like, "Hey, bro," he's like, "There's these three options that the mechanic gave me. I can do this, this, or that." And so we're kind of talking about it. I'm like, "Dude, you should do this one. Like that makes the most sense." He's like, "Yeah, but and then we kind of went back and forth. And then like my psychologist, my therapist brain turns on. He's like, "Dude, he already knows the answer to his question.
Yeah.
Don't tell him which one to get." So I asked him, I'm like, "Well, which one do you think you should get?" "Oh, this one."
Yeah. He's
I'm
already made
like,
up his
"Okay."
mind.
So then I do the therapist thing. I'm like, "You already got to figure it out." I'm like, "It sounds like you already know what to do."
Yeah. Why
He was just
hasn't?
looking for reassurance.
Correct.
Yeah, he was looking for reassurance. So I had to catch that. But it's hard because it's like you live 30 years of your life as a normal person, interacting with everybody in that way.
Yeah.
And then it's like you got to shift and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
he's not actually asking me my opinion. He just wants me to reassure him. So then that's what I have to do. So it's weird. Yeah, I'm like kind of split on it.
So random question. I don't think it's so random, and we'll finish with this with you, and then I'll stay on. And if anybody else wants to call in, we'll do that.
Yeah.
Are you required to report potential crimes? Where's the red line?
Like what kind
Somebody
of
comes and
crimes?
sees you and says, "Hey, I'm really, really thinking about doing this."
Yeah. So anytime you're seeing somebody, um, there's obviously like intake forms you got to fill out and stuff. Um, it's like a whole process, and you tell them straight up, like, hey, like if you're thinking about harming yourself or harming somebody else, or if somebody's in danger, elderly abuse, anything, if you suspect anything like that, like, yeah, you're a mandatory report. Like,
If
you
you
got to say
suspect
something.
someone's been raped, maybe I shouldn't say that word on YouTube because they'll get flagged. But regardless, we're talking to someone who deals in
The
this field. So
the algorithm.
yeah, if you suspect that that's what happened in counseling, but the person hasn't really come out and say it, and then they come out and say it, like, and they haven't told anybody else, like, you got to report that, right?
Um,
That's what I've heard.
I need a lot more clarification. Is she over 18? Is she not? Or
Ah, interesting.
are they
Wow.
over 18? Are they not?
So let's just get
If
let's.
they're a minor, absolutely.
What if
If they're
it's like
not,
What if it's like an adult? I'm going to complicate this. What if it's an adult, but when the thing happened, they were a minor?
oh, that's a good one. Um, we're gonna have to talk about that one off script. Yeah, you're talking about a real experience, man. All right. I think there is some sort of like statute or not statute. It's there's a lot of specifics there, man. I don't know. I think totally
Broke
dropped my
something.
pager. I think that's like a yeah, I dropped my pager. I think that's more of like a law question, man. I don't
Oh,
know.
okay. So we got to talk to the lawyers.
Yeah, there's a lot of things with yeah, because
Interesting.
it depends. I don't think there's like a limitation of how many years it's been since the incident. I think if the person was a mandatory, like all teachers are mandatory reporters. If a teacher hears something, he or
Uh-huh.
she has to report it. Therapists are also in that as well. But then if you find out they were a minor at the time and then now they're not, it's like it's really like dicey territory. I'll tell you from experience, even before I was a therapist, something similar happened um, from my knowledge, and like nothing happened. Like it was reported to the police as far as from what I heard, and then just nothing happened.
Hmm.
So I think there's like a whole bunch of like hoops that you got to jump through and stuff.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey,
Even
Andy,
then, I think the person has to come out and like
do it
file the report
themselves.
themselves and stuff
Hmm.
if they're over 18, I
Ooh,
think.
that'd be
So
tough, man.
yeah,
Um, well, Andy, thanks for coming on here. I just like peeked over to your Psychology Today page, and then I realized there's like a highlighted section that says call or email Andy Terzyan for a free 15-minute consultation now, and there's a phone number there.
hmm
And I realized that's a LA phone number, so you're planning on moving back.
I have an LA number, and that's the number that Psychology Today gave me. So I was like, all right, I'll just take it.
Nice. Okay, well, if you guys need
So
any, if you guys think Andy would be fit for counseling you, with the exception of Buck says you got to be old and gray and all that. But the rest of you guys, if you think Andy would be good, or if you have any friends and stuff like that, you guys can go check it out. Thanks for jumping on here, man. This was kind of last minute.
yeah,
And I was like, hey, can you take some time off and then jump on with me here for us to have this conversation? And you were like, yeah, let's do it. It's been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to seeing you later this month, hanging out and having
yeah,
coffee,
me too, man.
dinner.
Likewise.
Appreciate it.
Me too, man. Likewise. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I hope this was helpful.
I hope
You guys
so.
threw some hard questions at me. I feel like I just finished like a month ago, so like things are still processing. Like I'm still
Correct.
trying to digest a lot of stuff.
Well, we dealt with like
Hopefully,
ethics in the workplace and stuff like that. That's like that. I mean, that's not like your expertise. You're just talking about, hey, here's what
yeah,
happens, and
right.
then those situations change and where you are and all sorts of crazy stuff can happen in a situation like that. So appreciate
Yeah,
your candidness as much as possible about this. So
you got it, man. Anytime, anytime.
I will see you sometime soon.
Okay.
Take care.
All right. Thanks for having me again, man.
Hmm.
I'll see you soon.
No doubt.
Bye.
As we're talking about this, I got a text from my wife. It says, "What is this wire called?" It's an Ethernet. I love it. Oh, Albert says, I think you won't have time, but I want to know what the atmosphere in the therapy world is like with all this wokeness going on. That's an interesting question, Albert. Yeah, interesting. Anybody else? Such a Persian Armenian goodbye. See you later. Yeah, man, see you. I will see you. Take care. Here's what I'll do, guys. I'm gonna drop this link in the comment section. If anybody wants to call in, you're more than welcome to call in right now. If you guys want to stick around and talk for a little bit, we talk with Andy for about an hour, 20 minutes, because this is just like, hey, I got friends and they got stuff to say, and you're more than welcome to call in and have a conversation. And if not, then we can talk about a couple of more other things, and then I will be on my way. But that was cool. Talking to Andy. Again, he's someone that I talk to on a regular basis. This is interesting. Let me know. If anybody's going to call in, just say, hey, I'm about to call in or something so we know what's going on. Guys, I'm telling you, this is nuts. I have my YouTube thing open. I told you guys this is going to get flagged because I used that word. The stream hasn't even ended. I mean, some of the stuff we talked about, it just gave a little warning here saying this video may earn limited or no ad revenue due to the content identified as not suitable for most advertisers. That might change, I think, after this ends, but I would doubt that. That is nuts. Right? Because we use certain words and advertisers are like, ooh, no, they said this. It's like, bro, how do you talk about this stuff openly, like for the public, for people to grow and learn without being like punished for it? Who knows? Maybe YouTube might even take this down. I wouldn't be surprised by like tonight. It's like, we've taken your video down because you used that little word. This confirms I need to stick to nuthetic counseling. My conscience would kill me. Haha, that's another word that. Every minute universalist type of hospital chapel environment. Yeah. You got to say grape instead. Oh man, I'm too raw for that. I'm like, my mind operates in a whole different sort of way. Yeah, you guys have all the like where Albert says, sort of said roped. Yeah, the other day, I was doing a stream and somebody was saying unalived, and I was like, "What is that? Like, that's not English. What is that?" And then they told me what it was, and they're like, "Oh, because the algorithms don't like the actual word." I was like, I can't believe we're bringing in words into our vocabulary because of how things get canceled. And like like robots, right? Most of this stuff gets flagged is by robots. It's the algorithm, right? Like they've written a code and the code goes, "Oh, this word was used." No. And I've realized, as someone who's done this and then has to complain to, and say, "No, I didn't say that. That's not what that video's about. You can't take it down or demonetize it or something." That even the people that look at it don't have a proper training and like telling the difference between important subjects and somebody being abusive on the internet or something. It's crazy. Yeah, that's one of the things that I saw is the unalive thing is like a TikTok thing. YouTube AI doesn't understand nuance, apparently. Neither do the YouTube actual workers. Trust me. Ooh, dropping bombs. Carl said it's not vocabulary, it's self-censorship. Yeah, correct. I would agree with you, Carl. Anybody gonna call in, guys? Any one of my friends want to call in? Even if you're not a friend, you can call in and then become a friend. Say it in Armenian. Haha, sneaky guy. Sneaky person. Say it in a different language. That word, which you guys told me to say grape in Armenian, is a long word. the algorithm, aka some leftist college grad sitting and listening in our convos. If this is a sinking ship, let's just keep being honest about YouTube and say all the words. Yeah. I mean, look, for me, it's, if you're going to demonetize an interview like this over the sort of conversation we just had, by the way, it just went away. That thing that had come up, it just disappeared. The little notification that it won't be like fully monetized just went away. Interesting. Hey, the AI is working. I have to go now, actually, but thanks for the stream, Arthur. Bye, everyone. Have a good day. Hey, take care. Thanks for joining us. Man, I appreciate you, dude. I appreciate the fact that you come on here and you're respectful and it's fun. You hang out with all these annoying Christians who are trying to convert you. I hope we're not annoying. Try not to be. But we are trying to convert you. That's the reality. The guy listening feels called out, so he unflagged it. He's like, oh, they're onto me. They're onto me. These guys are onto me. They know. Hey, listen here. Recently graduated college student who's going to ban my stuff. Understand the context of the conversation before you say you're going to take that stuff away. We figured them out, guys. That's it. From now on, every stream, we got to be like, those who are listening, we know you're watching. It went away because you said grape. The AI thought that that's what you said, literally. Now all the weird conspiracy theories are going to come about. We'll see. Well, hey, it's been a pleasure, guys. Thanks for hanging out. For those of you guys who are interested in becoming a supporter of this ministry, do me a favor and go to patreon.com/Apologia Center and become a monthly patron, or you can just do a one-time yearly gift on Patreon as well as a supporter. I'm going to add a couple of things to the Patreon supporters page. I got to figure it out. Some of it has to do with giving discounts for the merch we're coming up with. We're about to drop a hat that says Apologia Center on it. And then another shirt that says Apologia in Greek. And we've dropped a bald, wow. My mind just went blank. What was it? It was like bald, bearded and biblical. So that's up there already. It's in the store. Like if you go and if you click on the store section of the channel, that'll take you there, and then you can buy that stuff. So that's a way to support what we're doing. Guess who just bought Love God with all your loving God with all your mind? That's right. You're gonna really enjoy that book. By the way, with all that said, just did an interview. I think last week with Ashley, and then it's up. She just released it today. If you want to watch that, we're talking about evangelism and methodology and stuff like that. That's on her channel. It's a really fun interview. I listened to it today, actually, which is I don't like listening to myself speak, but I listened to it because I wanted to evaluate what I had said. I liked it. It was good. It was a fun conversation. I think it's beneficial. So go to aspects of Ashley and check out that most recent interview. But take a break before you do that, because I don't know whether it'd be good for you to listen to me for this long. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate you. And I will see you guys tomorrow, Wednesday night, for our reaction time videos. If you got a video you want me to react to, send it my way at info@apologiacenter.com. And I will do my best. Take care. God bless.